Latinos make up the largest minority group in the state that's growing. Millions of people with their own stories and identities. They face more barriers to success than their white peers. Tonight, a deep dive into how we can all help remove those barriers to make our communities better. This is a KVUE News special production, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. Thank you for joining us for this KVUE News special presentation. I'm Yvonne Nava, joining you from outside the Ama S. Barrientos Mexican-American Cultural Center in downtown Austin near Rainey Street. The goal of this place is to preserve history and celebrate Latino and Mexican-American culture in the Austin area. Latino and Hispanic citizens make up just under 40% of the total population in Texas. And compared to their white peers, they face more barriers to success when it comes to employment, housing, equal access to health care, and more. And so we hope that for the next 2 nights, you'll join us as we dive into these topics and more. Let's start off tonight with COVID-19. Numbers continue to rise across Texas. We know this pandemic has had a disproportionate effect on the Latino population nationwide. So health experts in Austin are trying to combat that. Here's KVUE's Mari Salazar.
Tu dolor es nuestro dolor. That means your pain is our pain. And this mural is painted in honor of the dozens of Latinos who've died because of COVID-19. And the Austin Latino Coalition says it's not a coincidence Latinos are impacted the most in Austin, but it's because they lack the basic necessities to fight off the virus.
We can almost anticipate or sense that our neighbor or a family member needs some help.
But caring for one another in the Austin Latino community has become a full-time job for Paul Saldana and others in the Austin Latino Coalition this year.
But why is it that we're having to go and raise money or put money out of our own pockets to buy and supply the basic fundamentals that our community needs?
It's one of the many questions Saldana has for the city of Austin. The group has tracked the number of Latinos that have died since the start of the pandemic. In the U.S., they report more than 33,000 deaths. In Texas, more than 10,000. In Austin, more than 200.
If anything, it served as a motivation for us, and that's why we continue to do what we do, is we've turned that negative energy into something positive to support our community.
Not touching your face, cough or sneezing into a bent elbow.
But Saldana says he holds the city responsible. He explains at first, when elected and health officials were spreading the word about the pandemic,
there wasn't any information in Spanish. And then when we got to that point where there was information, it was only available on the website, which turned out to be a PDF document that was 70+ pages.
Saldana says other barriers included the struggle to get tested and then undocumented immigrant communities not trusting government testing sites. So they brought their concerns to Austin Mayor Steve Adler.
When we asked him for, to create a Latino task force to do a mitigation plan, his response was no. And so that did not go well with folks of our coalition.
Saldana says they picked up the slack. They gathered supplies, held PPE distribution supply events at least twice a month, provided tests at Austin churches, and partnered with places like the Latino Healthcare Forum. This is Jo Ramirez Coronado. She runs a nonprofit.
We distribute PPE and information about COVID, health insurance, any kind of information that we feel that families may want. Our community still needs help because we're still, as I said, that high rate of uninsured, high rate of chronic diseases, not able to pay their rent, not able to access healthy food.
The city of Austin created their Hispanic and Latinx task force in July, hoping to fight those racial disparities, which Connie Gonzalez says those inequities are nothing new to those communities.
We started with one testing site, and you could only get there by car. Now we have them all over neighborhoods that have been highly affected. And we don't ask for paperwork, ID, or immigration status.
Gonzalez is the task force lead and says she's the one that does Spanish interviews to relay the message to non-English speakers. And it's a process. The translations go through multiple channels of interpreters, which is why the city says translations took a while to build up. As a Latina working for this task force, Gonzalez says she's doing everything in her power to try and take care of people in her community.
when I'm out there and I'm providing them with resources. I wish I could take them all in my home if I could to assist them, but I know that's not possible. But I think the next best thing that I could do is to make sure that they are getting the resources they need to take care of their families.
In Austin, I'm Mari Salazar.
According to census data, in Texas, Latinos make up just under 40% of the general population. The state health department reports they make up 39% of all COVID-19 cases and just about 55% of deaths. In the Austin-Travis County area, the effects of COVID-19 are more disproportionate. Latinos make up nearly 34% of the general population locally, but 48% of cases and 48% of deaths. And the president of the Texas Medical Association told us there are a lot of reasons as to why communities of color struggle more during this pandemic.
That may be a combination of perhaps people living closer together, not able to socially distance as much. The Hispanic community may have larger families overall. There may be less decisions or information about the socially distancing and wearing masks. Some communities aren't as easily able to get medical care. They may have diabetes and hypertension that aren't being treated. So there's a lot of variables to consider.
Coming up, a city struggling to care for one of its largest populations. A look back at how Austin has accommodated Latinos. Plus, celebrating the success of Hispanic business owners in Austin. You're watching a KVUE News special presentation, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. Sponsored by the Covert Auto Group, a family tradition since 1909. You're watching a KVUE News special presentation, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. Well, Welcome back as we join you from the Bob Bullock Texas State History Museum. Texas has one of the highest Latino and Hispanic populations in the U.S., and that population is growing fast. Take a look at these maps here. The purple areas show where Latinos made up at least 75% of the population in 2010. Now look at how experts think that will change by the year 2050. But for a long time, the city of Austin has struggled to accommodate Latinos. Here's KVUE's Bob Buckaloo.
The history of Latinos in Central Texas was carved in the soil of the farmlands outside Austin. At the beginning of the 20th century, most worked as farmhands, many taking the place of black slaves who had been freed decades before. And even though the ties between Texas and Mexico had existed for centuries, Latinos in Texas were looked down upon and often subjected to violence at the hands of whites. According to historians William Kerrigan and Clive Webb, from 1910 to 1920, 5,000 Latinos in the U.S. were murdered in a wave of terror, many by the Texas Rangers, which began as a militia, funded and supported by white ranchers who wanted more land and hated their Spanish-speaking neighbors. Lynchings of Latino men and women took place on hanging trees, like this one that still grows outside the Goliad County Courthouse, 130 miles from Austin. And just as Black Americans fled rural violence in Texas, Latinos too were drawn to the relative safety of the capital city. Austin, Texas, 1900. Of the 23,000 people who lived here then, only about 500 were of Mexican heritage. In Central Texas, they helped build the railroads, tended to the crops of white farm owners, and worked as cowboys or vaqueros on the big ranches to the south and west of the city. But it was the Mexican Revolution of 1910 that saw Austin's Latino population swell. Millions of Mexican refugees fled the violence and crossed into Texas, spreading out across the U.S. By 1930, Austin's Latino population had risen to 5,000, yet despite their numbers, discrimination did not end. Local schools for Latino children were poorly funded. The doors to political representation were locked, and finding a safe place to live was difficult. Newspaper advertisements for new Austin neighborhoods like Hyde Park were filled with language that made it clear that there was no place for Latinos or blacks. In an article in the March 1913 Bulletin of the University of Texas, William B. Hamilton wrote, "Between Congress Avenue on the east and Rio Grande Street on the west, 4th Street on the north, and the river on the south, is a section which may be called the Mexican District. Bordering this section on the south," he wrote, "is the main city dumping ground. The Latinos have all the filthy habits described already, but you must add to them the worst filth of the dump." The Second World War would signal a turning point. Many thousands of Latinos from Austin and from across Texas would volunteer to fight. Some would become decorated heroes, only to return home and find themselves treated with disdain and disrespect. They had served their country just as white soldiers had and came home from the war determined to gain access to all this country has to offer. Organizations like LULAC, the League of Latin American Citizens, had been working to end discrimination since its founding in the 1920s and took on new importance in the post-war years. The GI Forum played an active role in assuring better educational opportunities and increased voting rights for Latinos. By the 1950s, the doors slowly began opening to political representation. In 1956, Henry B. Gonzalez came to Austin to serve in the Texas Senate, the first Latino to do so. But colleagues referred to him as that Mexican. And according to his biography, Gonzalez found himself fighting regular attempts by the legislature to circumvent national civil rights legislation. And Austin remained a city divided. The construction of Interstate 35, which had the effect of cutting off predominantly Latino and black neighborhoods on the east side from the prosperous central business district. It was both a symbolic and actual barrier. Many Latino children attended Palm School with a park and swimming pool nearby, but Latino children were not allowed to swim with the whites. By the 1970s, activism in Austin reached a peak, the Chicano Movement. The Raza Unida political party, solidarity with striking farm workers led by Cesar Chavez, who fought to improve the working conditions of Latinos who worked in the fields. It was a time of reawakening, and for some, social revolution was in the air. In Austin in the late 1970s, a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood in East Austin fought back against drag boat races in nearby Town Lake. The noise and crowds disrupted their homes every summer during a citywide event known as Aquafest. It was a popular celebration to many, but it was the boat races that divided the community throughout the 70s. Neighbors pleaded with City Council to ban the races. But when it came time for the council to decide, by a vote of 4-3, the races were allowed to continue. And when the boat races returned to Town Lake in 1978, fights broke out. Eventually, victory. The races would be moved to a location far away from East Austin. The 1970s would also see political progress. Richard Moya became the first Hispanic Travis County Commissioner when he was elected in 1970. At the time, no Latino had ever been elected to public office in Austin government. Gus Garcia was elected to the Austin School Board that same year. He would later become Austin's first Latino mayor in 2001. In 1975, more political victories. Gonzalo Barrientos was elected to the Texas legislature and John Trevino to the Austin City Council. From the Austin of 1900 to the Austin of today, there's a rich and vibrant history of Latinos in our city and stories of the vital contributions they've made to everyone's lives. Stories to be remembered and stories yet to be told. Bob Buckaloo, KVUE News.
I'm Bryce Newberry, joining you from Austin Police Headquarters downtown. Racial profiling is an issue the Austin Police Department has studied for years and is working to tackle. The city released a new report showing that officers disproportionately pulled over people of color compared to their white peers. For example, Hispanics make up about 31% of the population over 18 in Austin, but they made up about 33% of traffic stops last year. And another key takeaway from the report, if Hispanic or black people are pulled over by Austin police, they're more likely to get a ticket or be arrested, whereas white drivers may get away with just a warning. The director of the Office of Police Oversight says it's hard to know exactly why these problems exist, but APD needs to address them.
The data shows and confirms what the community has been saying. So now we have to figure out how we fix it together.
In June, Austin's City Council approved a resolution giving APD the goal of achieving zero racial disparity in traffic stops by 2030. At APD headquarters, I'm Bryce Newberry.
You're watching a KVUE News special presentation, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. A KVUE News special presentation, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. And now we bring you to South Congress Avenue, an iconic, vibrant part of Austin known for its eclectic shops and restaurants. Like so many parts of Central Texas, it's changing quickly. The beauty of the city of Austin is that we are made up of a lot of small businesses, and many of those businesses are run by Latinos. Trying to grow a business is challenging, especially during a pandemic, but it is possible with the right resources. It all started with the truck and a dream.
We're high school sweethearts, and even back then we knew that we wanted to open a repair facility.
Tasha and Angel Mora were eager to start a business. After months of pinching pennies,
he would work all day at the dealership and then in the evenings run our tow company.
They finally saved enough money to buy their first tow truck.
And I would dispatch and answer phones with a house full of kids as well.
Her new baby, A&A Wrecker and Recovery, opened up in 2002. Not long after came Automotive Services of Austin, just down the street on Martin Luther King Boulevard. As Tasha raised her 4 kids and helped grow 2 businesses,
4 or 5 at Howard,
they took on more family members, their employees.
We are incredibly close to our staff. We had 23 members at the beginning of the pandemic. Currently, we're at about 13.
Hey, Barker, how can I help you?
Sadly, Tasha's story is similar to that of many other local family-owned businesses. She struggled, but she didn't ask for help.
And quite frankly, that's just kind of been the story of our lives. Culturally, I feel like that is how we were raised, as far as you persevere, you work hard, you don't ask for help. You just work with what you have and make the most out of it.
The City of Austin and its small business program want people like Tasha to speak up and reach out.
We're available to everybody. We want to make sure that that our community knows that.
Chief Economic Recovery Officer Veronica Briceño says the goal of the small business program is to empower entrepreneurs and connect small businesses with the resources they need to be successful. They offer things like business training and one-on-one virtual coaching.
So we also partner with what we call our community champions. There's several organizations such as People Fund, in the community that do help small businesses work on providing loans and financial resources.
One example of a local success story is the Austin-based company Empanadas. The food truck went to the Small Business Association for help, and now their products are being sold in the frozen food section at H-E-B. Briceño says it's important for all of us to understand that when small businesses thrive, so do communities. And that's the driving force for Tasha, who also offers up some advice to fellow business owners.
Tread carefully, spend cautiously, back off when you need to, take care of the people that work with you, take care of those who have been loyal, and we're going to get through it. And not be afraid to ask for help. Absolutely. We want to be able to look back at this 10 years from now and say, that was a tough 1 year. That was a tough year. And we made it. We made it through, and it made us stronger. It was not easy, but it made us stronger.
For more information to help your small business, you can find links to the Small Business Association of Austin on our website, KVUE.com. You're watching a KVUE News special presentation, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. You're watching a KVUE News special presentation, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. Finally tonight, whether they were born here or they came to the U.S. later in life, Latinos in Texas may be confronted with outward racism, with being told to go back to their countries. Or they face a quieter kind of discrimination, as they're pressured into giving up long-standing traditions. But in the face of adversity, so many local Latinos say they choose not to run from their roots, but to embrace them.
In the midst of rising anti-Latinx sentiment, discrimination and racism, that you actually see a cultural resurgence, that people are embracing their heritage and showing their pride and saying, we are Americans too, but we're also proud of our heritage.
I'm a Mexican American now, and I love being an American because this country has given me nothing but wonderful opportunities and a beautiful life. But my heart is always the color of my native flag.
Tomorrow, we'll get into housing inequality for Latinos, the growing role that the Latino population has played in elections, and why equal education isn't always an option for many Hispanic children in the Austin area. So we hope you'll join us tomorrow night at 6 o'clock for part 2 of our KVUE News special, Racial Equality, Building a Better Austin. And we'll see you back here at 10 o'clock tonight for our regularly scheduled newscast. Good night.
Wednesday only.